Movidiam podcast. Join the conversation with global innovators as they share their journeys, discuss the state of the industry, and share insight into the future of media for brands, agencies, and production companies.
Hello and welcome to the Movidiam Creative Leaders podcast. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Nick Carter, who is a director based in London. Nick, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much, George.
Nick, tell us a little bit about how you got into the business and becoming a sort of freelance director.
It's a good question. How I got into the industry, like many people, it was just through a love of video. I initially at school studied photography, left school, went straight into working within music and did that for sort of 3 or so years. And then from that point, for the last sort of 13, 14 years, I've been working in and around advertising and in and around creating content for brands. But my love of sort of the moving image, my love of holding a camera never really left me. And it got to a point where I was so fed up of getting all of these amazing briefs land on my desk and then finding teams to execute them. So I decided to essentially quit a very secure 9-to-5 job, jump straight into the freelance world and promote myself as a filmmaker. And from that point, I've never really looked back.
And how do you find you sort of aggregate or find briefs that you might have got formerly when you were in a more established agency? Because it's definitely a more challenging environment, especially today.
Yeah, it is. I mean, working as a freelancer in film, video, content, that kind of space, you are really only as strong as your network. So it's just vitally important at every opportunity, whether that be through friends or previous clients or brands or whoever you've worked with. It's just about networking. It's just about speaking to as many people as you can, as often as you can. And eventually someone will say, yes, we have a brief. Would you like to respond to it? And for me personally, it kind of just went from there.
And when you get people coming to you cold, whether that channel's through a platform like Movidiam or Instagram or wherever it might be, are they going, hey, Nick, we like the look of this previous piece of work that we've seen. Who are you as a person before they make a call on whether they want to work with you? Or are they coming going, oh, we've heard, is it often the look that the sort of DOP directors achieved on previous work that they're coming to you for?
Yeah, it's a good question. And the reality about working within film or video, however you want to phrase it, is that you can only get work if you have a show reel. However, in order to get a show reel, you need to have work. So those sort of things together, that doesn't match up. So what you initially do is sort of you go out and you just start making loads and loads and loads of stuff for free, which you kind of like self-teach yourself to do all different parts of filmmaking, from shooting to directing to editing to lighting, everything, to the point where you've got a show reel that is good enough for you to.
Is it good enough bait for the marketeer who might commission you?
Yeah, exactly. So then they'll look at that show reel, and then they'll pass a brief. Pass a brief over to you if they think it's relevant. But in terms of your actual question, it really does depend. For me personally, I've got quite a strong network of existing clients that I do get quite a lot of repeat business from, and those pieces of repeat business allow me to get bits and pieces from other brands here and there.
Interesting. Do you find that the same network of folks, your work or portfolio gets quite samey over time? Or when you get, say, let's take, for example, absolutely out the blue, Airbnb contacts you through your website and say, Nick, we've identified your work, we'd love you to do this. Is that a reality, or is it always got to come through a black book or quite a close network?
It does happen, and when that does happen, it's normally through a contact that I've had who has recommended me to somebody else that they know within the industry. That's sure. Normally how that sort of approach or how that sort of situation would happen. But personally, I specialise in making short form documentaries, so I do a lot of stuff for big like TV networks like the BBC, for example, but also I do a lot of stuff within the branded content world. So for people like Nike, for GQ, I've done stuff for Hugo Boss, Heineken, like a whole range of different brands. But I do like to try and keep things, relatively varied, because I think one of the worst things that you can have as a filmmaker is have especially when you're working in a commercial world, one of the worst things that you can have is a style, because all brands are different. All brands have a different message to promote and a different way in which they would like to promote them. And if you have one style that sort of runs across everything you do, you'll get found out very quickly, and your work will, it will soon dry up.
Interesting. And Nick, we can't go much further without discussing the sort of current pressure and challenges that everyone's facing in the industry today, which is sort of early April 2020, where COVID is still is very much a real thing, and people are contained to their homes. And obviously, this is a massive challenge for live action people that go onto sets and locations to film work. So, what are a couple of your you're relatively experienced in this world? What are some of your pointers of what to do now for, say, a 2 or 3 week period which might be particularly challenging?
I mean, I've been asking myself this question a lot, and when probably 2 weeks ago, I had all my next 3 months of work. I had some really great big chunky projects happening within the next 3 months, and all of those projects like either postponed or cancelled within the space of 3 days. So I think it's only natural for anybody to firstly go through, well, you go through like a process mentally. One is shock, two is what the hell am I going to do? And once you've sort of got over those first two, it's thinking, right, we've now all got a lot of spare time on our hands. How can we utilize it to our best ability? So what I've been doing personally, as I mentioned earlier, in this industry, you really only are as strong as your network. It's how you get jobs. It's how you, none of this stuff is posted on jobs boards. Reality, any gig that I do, none of it is on a jobs boards. It's all through contacts that I have. My work is all through contacts that I have, and like friends of or colleagues of my contacts, essentially, and that's how I get busy. That's how I get work in. So if we've all got all this free time on our hands, we're like, why don't we just use it to make our networks even stronger? So on a personal level, that's exactly what I've been doing. I've been working or using Instagram to build my own network. So over the past 2 weeks, I've had video calls with such a wide variety of different people from within the industry, ranging from other DOPs, directors, music licensing people, stylists, makeup artists, lighting techs, like a really, really, really mixed bag. So when we get out of this mess that we're currently in, a brief might fall on my desk, a brief might fall on someone else's desk who they think I might be relevant for, or vice versa. And we can essentially just sort of spread our wings and hopefully pick up more work working with like-minded people that we've managed to sort of network with within this sort of time period.
Sure. I mean, I don't think there is a right answer, is there? It's very challenging.
It isn't. There isn't. But from a brand's point of view, I do still have conversations with a lot of my own clients, and they're as stuck as anybody, because there is more screen time currently with everybody being at home and just on lockdown. But how do you utilize that for your own brand? And that's really the $1 million question at the minute. When everybody is stuck at home, how do you get out and make new content? And the reality is that's why you'll see across the internet now that anybody before who was identifying as sort of a director or a DOP or whatever is now an editor or an animator, because you can still craft stories, you can still create content from home, and that is essentially what a lot of brands are having to do now to still to keep communicating with their customers.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly. It is extraordinary, the shift. But I suppose people will use this as a time to kind of learn new things which they wouldn't have had the time to do in the past.
Yeah, I mean, there is that as well. I mean, me on a personal level, I have been trying to, you're always learning in this job. Like, there's always new techniques, there's always new way of doing things, and I think that's a really positive thing. And what often does happen, if you get stuck in your own lane on a day-to-day basis, you just continue to do things in the way in which you've always done them. But actually, now is a good opportunity to maybe, read up on XYZ cinematographer or an XYZ, whoever, directors or whatever, just to try and hone in on your own craft through the knowledge and the skills of other people.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I suppose the one thing about, just going back to the previous point you're making about brands communicating in this way, is they've got to be quite cautious that they don't do something which seems sort of opportunistic as well, because people will really down on them for that.
Completely, and you don't want to force content or force any kind of video just for the sake of it. And I think like the brands that I work with are, they're very understanding of that. They're very understanding of people's situations. And the reality is is that no one wants to be sold to currently. It's not really a buyer's market in that sort of capacity. So you have to be empathetic to everybody's situations and just produce the best way that you can, just good content that has whether it be personal narratives at the heart or just has a feel good factor for it that enables people to take their mind off of essentially the terrible situation that everybody's currently in.
But there has been a response though from all those networks you talk about, Instagram and YouTube and all these memes that are being flown around, which are highly creative, some of them very sophisticated and amusing, that's moving around. I mean, there is obviously a lot more creativity in folks that might not be in creative roles.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I personally recently, I actually just pushed it out today, but over the past week, I came up with an idea of basically, I was listening to the radio, and the Kendrick Lamar track "All Right" came on, and listening to that song in this current climate sounded like a battle cry. I mean, it's so relevant for right now that I came up with the idea to essentially get people from all over the world to send me a clip of them either dancing, rapping, or singing along to this Kendrick Lamar track. I would then cut it all together into one video and then just share it. So that's exactly what I've done. And now I literally just a moment ago shared this video, and it's got people from all over the world. We've got people in America, from New York, LA, Philadelphia, in South America. We've got people from Ecuador, Colombia, Argentina, Brazil, like guys from Nigeria, Israel, right across Asia, India, Sri Lanka. Where else?
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. What's your handle, Nick, for those listening that might go and visit and look at that?
It's my Instagram is Carter Said What. But it's just like a fun thing for me personally. Trying to do something positive with loads of people who are all in the same situation has been it's been a really fun project to work on. But like you say, it's just you have all of these pockets of creativity now, which is sort of coming to the forefront, and it often happens in situations like this. But that's where the internet sort of comes into its own, because it gives everybody a platform to just to create, essentially.
To articulate, yeah. And I suppose in a world which isn't in the world before this, there's a lot more sort of hierarchy and cynicism around people getting out there, and perhaps this is one positive, is that people get out there more and it creates more opportunity.
It does, but then on the flip side to that, a lot of my friends and a lot of people, or a lot of my contacts who work with the industry as freelancers, who are really struggling and now questioning whether this is still an industry that's for them, because there is currently, as it stands of today, I mean, there's no sign as to when this is ever going to end. And the reality is, people are looking at it essentially thinking, is actually having a secure 9-to-5 job better for me and better for my family? Because it is, it's desperate times for a lot of people.
Yeah, very much so. I completely agree. I mean, I think it is very, very challenging, and it's when the economic system grinds to a halt, stuff which is considered perhaps a value added or at the top of the hierarchy is difficult to hold on to from a commercial perspective. And I think there are resources and things that can be used to kind of continue to find opportunity. And also you've probably got to look at yourself and think dynamically about diversification and how you can apply your skills in a different sort of way that might be relevant when when the world comes back to life in a month or two's time.
Yeah, that's totally. But I completely agree with that. I would say though that from conversations that I've had with my own clients, I do have a good level of confidence that as soon as sort of the gates are lifted and people are able to get out and work again, that brands, there's a strong desire for them to create content. There's a strong desire for them to push video. So hopefully things will revert to normal pretty quickly, because if people aren't, coming up with that $1 million idea about how they can utilize animation or any other type of medium to produce video, they're not going to have created stuff for quite a long period. So they sort of like it to get out there and just start feeling relevant and start feeling alive again and start pushing out new content. So I am confident, like I say, that once all of this sort of sorts itself out and we can work again, that there things hopefully will look okay.
Well, I think they've got to. I mean, I think the basic assumption is that when people advertise and create content, they sell more of their product or service. So that it will revert to that in time, I suspect. But there will be behaviors that have changed. I mean, one of the major behaviors that I think people will question is the remote working piece. And actually, the freelance and filmmaking community has been remote and dynamic and sort of disparate for pretty much its whole history, with multiple different roles coming together, often on a physical location, but often also virtually now. And so we're seeing more and more, perhaps the filmmaking industry in general can teach the more traditional industries that are in vastly expensive CBD offices that actually perhaps a remote mentality is the way forward, and everyone's been educated this at the same time.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've had a lot of cool video calls with clients that would normally be meetings, and I think because they're established clients of mine and I have a relationship with them, it's fine. But the reality is, it's much harder to create the same level of bond with a client over a video call than it is face to face. But what it does show is that actually with established clients, those meetings don't necessarily have to be meetings. Everybody can save time, and you could just do it as a video call instead.
True. I think that famous sort of awkward moment of people trying to sort out their conference calling suites, that is one thing that will be eradicated because everyone will be familiar with doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Nick, it's been very good and interesting talking to you on the Creative Leaders podcast today. Thanks very much indeed for your time. And please do, anyone who's listening, reach out to Nick or asking questions on the links below. And look forward to catching up in six or so months' time when this no doubt is behind us.
Yeah, well, I agree. Hopefully it is all behind us. Things would have reverted to normal and we will just be able to live in a normal everyday life.
Nick, thanks so much for your time.
Great. All right. Thank you, George.
You've been listening to the Movidiam podcast. Movidiam is a world-class network of production talent complemented by secure tools that blend hiring, communication, and payments. Find out more at movidiam.com.